Welcome to the Operation Move podcast. My name is Zoe, and this is part 2 of my chat with Kirsten, which was last year when we were, on our way to being very relaxed after a yoga retreat. So now we've got, how long does it take to get to Canberra?
About an hour.
Yeah, about an hour. Flight's delayed, so we've done lots of shopping today that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Then I've ticked off a few bits of personal admin. Thank you. It's for the company, Zoe.
And I am ignoring the fact that I'm not going to get home until midnight. I've had 2 very good coffees and I have a teensy little nap on the plane. Very good at micro napping now.
Excellent.
There was a time when I could never go to sleep on cue, and now I'm like, opportunity sleep.
It's an art form. I feel like it's a thing that you could work towards, right? It doesn't come easily, being able to nap.
Yeah, and it is handy when you have the ability, and usually it's only I do best with a 20-minute. It's not a full sleep cycle.
It's just enough.
Just enough so that I get a little bit of rest, but then when I wake up, I'm not groggy.
You don't feel like bullshit, which is the risk, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the gamble that you take. So we still had a couple of questions to get through.
We did.
So probably the first one was what did running teach us that sort of applies to other things? Which is a very, that's a good question, but it's
it's a very broad
question.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably changed for me anyway. I think it's changed over time. I think in the beginning, the lessons were really big. It was one of those things that I thought that I could never be a runner or run 5Ks or run without stopping.
Be competitive or be, in your age group or at a fun run or something like that. Be athletic.
I avoided it. I always disliked it in my 20s, and I just never. And so when I did those things, it then kind of challenged other parts of my identity, ideas you hold off, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
They're I did this other thing that I thought that I couldn't do. So
look what happened there.
And, gave me confidence in other areas, going and doing the coaching accreditation, which I was scared shitless of, because
so much anxiety. You have to do stuff in front of people.
Assessments in front of people, not just staff, but actually
assessments.
Run a mini training thing in front of people and then get feedback in front of people on the spot. Terrifying.
It was traumatic.
And things like that, or even just walking into a gym. Before running, I would walk into the gym to use a treadmill, but that was about the extent of my confidence level. And then afterwards, I was I could go and do CrossFit.
Yeah.
I could walk into a gym like that, and that would be okay. And admittedly, with something like that, it wasn't in the beginning, very difficult, and it wasn't without a few tears to sort of get over the speed bumps.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have had the opportunity to get over the speed bumps without running. And I think it just gave me that it's a little backbone. It's of I might be crap at all of this other stuff, but I can go and run 5 kilometres without stopping. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
What about you in the beginning?
I think in the beginning it taught me that if I committed to something, I could see it through.
Yeah.
And I had tried to learn how to run before, and it had gotten a bit hard and a bit boring, I guess. And I'd stopped, and part of that might have been the plan that I was following. it wasn't super interesting, and it was very vague, and I had no one to do it with. So, and it was just it wasn't super important to me. Whereas when I did it with Move, after I'd had Heidi, it was really important to me. And I was really invested in the process, and I was absolutely not going to give up. So it taught me that, that I can, A, do the hard thing, B, when I want to, I can commit and see it through. And also, I think in a roundabout way, it's taught me to, or, it's trying to teach me, it has tried to teach me over the last 8 years to think big, don't limit myself to the fact that when I first started running, all I wanted to do was run 3 times a week for half an hour. I just wanted to run 5K 3 times a week. And I thought that was what I had set my sights on. And, little did I know or realise or anticipate. So it's taught me that I can do far more than what I think I can, and that I can commit to things, and I can do the hard things, and I can push through to reach my goals, and that my goals don't have to look like anybody else's goals. They're just mine.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And I think I guess taught me an awful lot. I guess also, not having it in my life for the last 6 or 7 months has taught me just as much about how much it means to me to have running, and how badly do I want it back, I guess. And do I still, how do I feel about it not being part of who I am for the last 6 or 7 months? And yet I still call myself a runner.
Which is funny.
Even though I haven't run for 7 months.
Sometimes I've people I might be at a finish line cheering some people on, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not a runner. I only run 5Ks," and I'm like, "I got some bad news."
Newsflash. I'm very sorry to let you know, but you actually are.
You are a runner, yeah, sorry to disappoint.
No, I know, right. So it's interesting. So obviously I still identify as a runner, and I'm really not ready to let it go. So obviously I'm prepared to fight for it and try and get it back in my life. For it to be more of a part of my life than it has been. So, and I know that I know from previous experience of things that I've sort of gotten involved in, like, I used to sew, and I would sew every day or every week or whatever, and I would sew and sew and sew, and then I just stopped one day. And it has been, I would imagine, maybe 8 years since I last touched my sewing machine with the purpose of actually sewing something rather than just moving it from one place to another, in the cupboard, or contemplating selling it secondhand. It is. Obviously, I'm not done with it yet, but yeah. And I think the second part of that question was, what has it taught? Like, how does that apply into other areas of life? And I think, it's taught me that about other people, that there's more to people than what you see. People don't look at me and think that, Kirsten must have done this, whatever. Like, it doesn't, I don't wear it on I don't wear those running accomplishments or anything that are, that are my accomplishments, and so you just never know what interests people might have if you just talk to them and ask them. And everybody has a different version, a different view of success, or a different view of meeting a challenge, and what might be a challenge to one person is, not a challenge to another person, and that's okay. yeah, and I think it's given me the confidence to know that, yes, I can do hard things and I can persist at doing those hard things, even when it's uncomfortable or, I might feel like giving up, which has been, that's been a theme lately in my life with work. So being hard and stressful and whatever else, but like, I know it won't always be hard and stressful. Like in a run, eventually it ends, and then you feel pride and you feel gratitude and you feel exaltation and all the rest of it. So I feel like it's there's lessons there for the rest of your life as well.
Yeah, I don't think I would have gone back to without the impact of running, because I would have just thought, I can't do that. That's too hard, or like it's going to take too much time, or whatever is the reason that I can't manage that. But then when you manage being at the gym 5 times a week and running 110 kilometres a week, I'm pretty sure I can manage that.
Yeah.
And just, I think it tends to make me then less anxious in situations where I would normally be anxious, like when we're doing presentations or even like I always find it a bit challenging, like after I've submitted an assessment, to read the feedback, because I'm always like, do I really want to know?
No, I hate reading feedback.
And if I can avoid reading feedback, I probably will. But I'm just better equipped to read it and sort of like take it on board, and all of that sort of stuff. And I think over the last period where things like post-COVID have not gone to plan, and also other life stuff have kind of like gotten in the way of what my normal routine would be, and I've had time to sort of step back and go, is running like most days of the week and for an hour or more, like what I want to be doing. Had a chance to kind of look at all of that. I think it's also taught me a little bit of patience.
Yeah.
In that, like initially, like I always check my time hop, mostly for kittens. Like, let's be real. Like I don't really look at it because I know
small children are cute too.
Yeah, babies, kittens. That's why I'm there.
Yeah.
But obviously, like a lot of running stuff pops up, and probably in the first, period of time of looking at that stuff, I would kind of feel like probably disappointed or demotivated, or like, who is that person?
Yeah.
And I've noticed, like, probably over the last little while that it's sort of starting to shift, where I've kind of like, well, like I did that, so like I could do that again.
Yeah.
And it's starting to tip over ever so slightly into being motivational, demotivational. And it's just sort of taught me that like nothing is ever gonna like last forever. Like it's you just have to, it's sort of like having that patience to kind of go, like, it's okay that I'm in a different space, but if I just, and I probably haven't stuck with it as much as I would like, but by the same token, even in like tough weeks, I have usually at least done one run, and most weeks I would have done, like 5 or something like that. And it has just kind of helped me to go, like, this is a really long-term thing. And, like this blip that I appear to be having, even though it's probably, like, I guess, like, really getting up to 6 months now, it's still a blip in the amount of time that I've been running, which is for, like 8 to 10 years or like whatever it is now. And, like the important thing is that, like, not to sort of like push through that when I'm not prepared to push through it, so it can still be going, okay, like, what is the version of running that I can enjoy right now? And last week it was 5Ks.
Yeah.
That is the version.
And I guess and for me, the key word in that is enjoy.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, and not chore. What is the version of running that you can enjoy rather than, what do I have to do? You get to go for a run. You don't have to go for a run. You get to go for a run, and looking at that from an enjoyment point of view at the moment.
And it's like, what is going to add stuff in rather than take stuff away?
Yeah.
And for me, that could change depending on, how things are going, what that looks like. But when I sort of looked at it and sort of felt like, what is the time or the distance of a run that I could go for where I'm not going to get to a point in that run and go, I wish this was done now.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's definitely keeping it under an hour. And by keeping it 30 minutes, probably 45 minutes would be fine. And on, I guess, what was it, Thursday, I went for a run after the gym and I had planned on doing 45, but then I ran into someone from the gym and we stopped and we talked for 15 minutes, so I ended up doing 30. So, I think that has been, important to sort of, have a little bit of flexibility with it.
Yeah.
And just, being able to wait until that part of me comes back. And I've had that experience before, which was not personal stress related. It was more I just done too much training wise and I got burnt out. And so I just did sort of pretty easy stuff.
Yeah.
For, I think it was a couple of years. Easy to underestimate how much burnout can knock you around.
And I think one of the other things running has taught me is that stress is stress is stress. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's stress that's coming from running or from work or from life changes or, emotional, mental stress, physical stress. It doesn't matter. And we've all been under an awful lot of stress. Some people more than others, for various reasons. And that's not, COVID just in the background providing that low-level stress or higher-level stress, depending on, depending on the person. But it all takes its toll, doesn't it? And if you're putting a lot of emotional energy or mental energy, physical energy into one thing, you can't just, it all just compounds and it all adds up and it all takes its toll. And when other things in life are hard, sometimes the running needs to be easy so that it's an outlet rather than a chore, and it is a pressure valve rather than adding to the pressure. I mean, sometimes, we were talking about this yesterday, that, sometimes you need it to be the pressure and sometimes you need it to be the pressure valve. So,
and sometimes you've also got to accept that, too, okay, if I'm running this amount, then I need to do this amount of strength training. If I can't get my head around that amount of strength training, then I've got to run less if I want that sort of...
Otherwise, it's a big heap of nothing waiting.
Longevity.
There's a whole big injury waiting.
So, sometimes it is about, doing less so that you can be consistent for longer and I think also, the running stuff has really helped me with, sort of getting better with self-care stuff, because I think that it teaches you that, there's an aspect where you do need to do things that are just for you, that aren't for children or work or family, whatever else.
Yeah.
And I think that can then, help you take that into other areas as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's sort of getting a massage or a treatment, or just, you know, or even how I, you know, like give the kids mental health days, you know, like all of that sort of stuff, just having an understanding of, you know, stress and rest, and, you know, like finding a balance, and, you know, sort of like just, it probably is like a lot of the stuff that surrounds running too, like, you know, sort of like learning about how impacted I am by, you know, like food and motivation, and, you know, like, and not having it be like a super rigid thing, like not having like a meltdown if I have a week of, you know, like eating pizza and brownies, you know, like that's
sometimes your deficit, your body is, you know, deficient in pizza and brownies. It just has to happen.
And, you know, like it just being, so I think that it does help with like sort of like allowing me to be more sort of in tune with my body, rather than, I think that before I started to run, I wrote about this like a long time ago in a galaxy far away, but I used to kind of think of like being a sort of like a more intellectual person. I used to kind of think of myself in some ways as disconnected from my body.
Yeah.
And that my body was like an adversary. Like if I was trying to kind of like do something physical, like my body
against it
was like an obstacle in my way, instead of, you know, like greatest asset.
Yes.
You know? And sort of learning that I could, you know, sort of like honour my body while attempting to improve it, and like holding those two ideas in one, and not like, you know, not like treating like whether it was like weight loss as some kind of victory over my body, instead of something that my body
or that you're waging against yourself.
Yeah, like my body was able to do. Like the fact, like I think about it now, like when we're like at the gym and we're doing like, you know, like sandbag carries or something like that. Yeah. And I think about, okay, like I used to walk around with this extra weight, and I used to run with it attached to your body. And how amazing is my body that it would do all of that. So I think it taught me that, like, in some ways, the least efficient version of my physical body and physical fitness was also the most impressive version.
Yeah.
You know?
It did.
Yeah.
Look what it did. And it did it again and again when you asked it to.
It ran several half marathons while I was a full-time smoker.
That's commitment. Full-time smoking is a huge commitment.
Yeah. And I was like probably, it wasn't as expensive back then, but it was like, I was probably at that point would easily, you know, like smoke like half a pack of cigarettes in a day.
Yeah.
I can't,
not even trying.
I can't exactly remember, but that was probably around, like, when it was less expensive, I was definitely a pack a day smoker. And I would literally, like, go for a run and then have a cigarette. It's like the best cigarette of the day.
Oh, that is just so priceless. Absolute solid goals. It really is. Yeah. That's funny.
So I've had a significant upgrade from going from...
At least it stops the post-run cough, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Get some deep breathing happening.
So it's been a real upgrade going from that to like
100%.
Coffee and avocado toast.
Yeah.
That has been a massive improvement. But I also don't think that I would really have even been able to quit smoking
without the running.
No, because and not just
you wouldn't have been motivated to.
Not just for the running, but it's sort of like it was this constant physical feedback. Like you can, if you're not like doing something like that, you could easily be a smoker and not really notice it beyond like when you're going upstairs or you know, like
100%. You get used to what your norm is, don't you? Because as smokers, like generally speaking, and I know it's stereotypical, most smokers are not physically active.
No.
So, you know, because they're not natural bedfellows. They don't They don't go hand in hand, because you very quickly learn to avoid exercise because you've either to make up more time to have a cigarette, or because having a cigarette makes you feel shit, like, feel like shit when you're doing the exercise.
Yeah.
So you just avoid that kind of behaviour because you want to reinforce the habit that gives you the more pleasure, which is smoking.
Yeah. So, it was having that constant physical feedback on it was very useful, particularly because, for most people who are quitting, it takes several goes. A few people do it the first time. Yeah. And I certainly, had enough experience of this is what my body feels like when it's not smoking, running, and this is what it feels like when I am. And you that addict, you like to have this cognitive dissonance. I could do this, and you can, but it's not going to feel the same.
And on a lesser level, on a much smaller level, for most of us, and not everybody, and it's the same with alcohol for me, is that, I stopped drinking alcohol because I didn't like the way it felt when I was running the next day, and I didn't get a good sleep, which made my running feel worse. So that was a no-brainer for me. Well, I'll just drink less or no alcohol. Easy.
Yeah.
I think one of the really other important things that running injury has taught me is that running is an awesome stress reliever, but it can't be your only stress reliever. You have to have other outlets, because if you only relieve your stress by running, you will injure yourself.
I have a yarn
you will not be able to run at all.
I have a yarn collection that's up that theory.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you just do need, and having had an injury where it was, 5 months or something that I didn't run for, and you have to, sit with yourself.
And it's an uncomfortable. It's we're not great company.
And you can do other stuff. Eventually, I was able to sort of cycle or swim or whatever. But you have to sort of start developing other skills. Otherwise, there are a lot.
And you can't just chase that runner's high as your stress relief. The whether it's yoga, getting walking away with a beautiful feeling of zen or bliss from yoga, or feeling energized in a different way. There has to be some other outlets for you to decompress or, relieve the pressure or whatever.
Because a lot of times
you can't just fix more stress with more running, because we'll end up in no running and an injury 9 times out of 10.
And even, I think too, it's good to have skills that are out there, but non-exercise or movement-based for your stress relief.
Reading books, getting a massage, having a facial, whatever it is that floats your boat, having a coffee with a friend or whatever, getting away for a weekend by yourself or with a friend, whatever. There are so many options out there that are not based around moving your body necessarily, that can actually, because there's different sorts of rest, isn't there? And I think, getting sleep is one of them, but, there's lots of other different types of quality rest, and some of it's having fun and doing fun things with people that you love spending time with, whether that's your friends or your family or a personalised combination of the two. Or, it's up to you, but and everybody's different. But that's, I found that this weekend, yes, it was really incredibly restful, but it was lots of different types of rest. It was time away from social media and from the internet, because we had no internet. There was only text messages. Having time away from worrying or thinking about my family or my kids. Time away from work. The yoga, the deep rest that came with the nidra and the yin and all that sort of stuff was another element. And also just connecting with people that I enjoy spending time with, spending time with Zoe and spending time with my sister-in-law, and with my yoga teacher and my friends from yoga. It was so multifaceted. And also, we went for 2 walks over the weekend. you know, things like that. And just also that nourishing, beautiful, nourishing, you know, food that we didn't have to cook or clean up after or anything, which was, like as a mum and as an adult, that's also incredibly restful in and of itself, to waive responsibility. And all I have to decide is what I'm going to put on my plate. How many cups of tea do I actually need to drink, or do I feel like drinking? And do I go and, you know, do I go, what do I do with my spare time? You know, it was a restful experience in a very multifaceted way. And I think that highlighted that it's you can't just you need to pay attention to the various aspects of yourself and apply rest to, you know, to the various you know, parts of your body and your soul and your mind and, you know, and your heart and all that sort of stuff.
There can be a risk with some types of movement, like whether it be like running or strength training or whatever, that you are choosing to not feel something emotional by feeling something physical, and you're not actually dealing with it. You're just kind of, can occasionally be like a form of suppression. Like, I don't want to feel this, so I'm going to go out, I'm going to smash out this run, and all I'm going to feel is like my lungs burning and, you know,
avoidance.
And so in some, and it can be both, like it's not always like one or the other, but I think that having things that help you to, like, maybe process things more deeply and is also useful, whether that's, you know, like I've found doing some mindfulness, which I always thought was like the same as meditation, but turns out it's not the case. I found that really, really useful as somebody who's, I think you certain personalities, if you're like a little bit anxious, you tend to be always like focused on like the past or the future, not like in the moment.
Yeah, not be present.
And whether it's doing stuff like that or it's doing like creative stuff or some, you know, like journaling or like whatever else, I think that there are, you know, a lot of ways, and I just love that. I think I mentioned it in another podcast, but that thing of not like finding a solution you love and thinking that it's going to solve every problem. You know, like it's one thing, and just, you know, you've got to sort of like fall in love with the problem or the process and not the solution.
Yeah.
So, you know, running's not going to like...
It's not going to fix everything, is it?
Everything.
And it can actually make some things worse. And the longer you put off dealing with how you feel about something, the bigger that, you know, generally speaking, I'm absolutely not a counsellor or a psychologist, but, you know, problem doesn't go away just because you haven't dealt with it, does it?
No.
You know, you're just delaying the inevitable, and sometimes the problem is bigger by the time you actually are forced to deal with it instead of choosing to deal with it. But, you know, yes, it can save the marriage, maybe, like it can save it can stop you from saying you know, those magic 4 words, or
sometimes it is as simple as like just stopping yourself from doing something that's going to make the problem worse. Like, it's not necessarily going to solve it, but it's going to stop you from doing something stupid.
But it's not, I think going for a run, if you're feeling a certain feeling, is not too dissimilar from, you know, eating your feelings. Like, you know, you're running, you go for a run to stop, to get rid of that feeling. And we do that with food as well. I mean, you can... Yeah,
a lot of my feelings do taste a lot like meringue pie.
I love how sometimes my feelings taste amazing. I'm not going to deny, but and sometimes a run is awesome, but, you know, for the similar reasons. But at the same time, you've still, I think it's important to, you know, to realise that it's it's not a panacea, is it?
No,
it's not,
like it's
not a
sometimes
fix-all.
Sometimes it just helps to clarify your feelings, and then you go, okay, like this is what I need to do.
You can still go for a run.
Sometimes I have very good ideas on a run, but also sometimes not going for a run and sleeping in is something that I feel better for, because I just need the rest, and I then go into the day, you know, like feeling like I have like more capacity for like what I need to deal with. So, you know, and I think that's also one of the other questions was, it's like, so like how much is too much? There was a joke about like coffee and cake, and we all know, well,
some of us love coffee more than coffee loves us.
Yes, that's true.
Sadly, but yeah, and you can laugh and joke about all that sort of stuff, but also the third thing in that particular question was life. How much is too much? And I think, to be honest, this year life has been a lot, and it's been gonna, I don't know. It's it would just be nice if everything could just pause for a little minute.
Yeah.
So that we could just start processing what's been happening over the last few years. I feel like through the last 3 years, like this week, it's on the 16th, it's Jack's 3rd anniversary since he was diagnosed with diabetes. And so in 4 days' time, from when we're recording this, and I feel like everything started then for me. It didn't start with COVID, it started on the 16th of December. And 5 days in hospital.
Was it December?
It was right. It was 9 days before Christmas, and I had just run 100K 2 weeks beforehand, maybe 2.5 weeks beforehand, and I was still recovering from my 100K down at Falls Creek, and I had given myself a nasty case of gastro to boot, which had slowed down my recovery. And I was still exhausted when I went into hospital with Jack for those 5 days. And I don't think, and I'm still processing that, because then we were bushfires, and then it was COVID, and then it was, everything got cancelled, and, and I ran towards the fire instead of, doing anything else. I was like, well, how can I help? What can I do? Tell me where you need me. And I haven't stopped since then. And it's been, 3 years is a long time to run at that level of, what feels like that level of stress.
Yeah, it's like somebody's like asked you
hypervigilance for 3 years.
Run a hard mile, but then you've kept going
every day.
Like an ultra.
I feel like I'm on that, what's it called, that Sri Chinmoy 3,000 kilometre madness block of the, where they run mile blocks in New York City for 12 hours, 14 hours a day for 6 weeks or whatever it is, something ridiculous, where they run 3,000 miles and they never leave that same 1 mile. I feel like that's the effort that it feels like at the moment. And so I'm not surprised that this year that I have literally just burnt myself out, and that I, if I didn't know better, I would have mistaken it for depression, I think, and there were days when I questioned my mental health and, is this burnout or am I depressed, What is the difference? Because they feel very similar. And I've never been diagnosed with depression or anything, but that's how I imagine things. Like that's, if I'm not at work or doing something that a child needs right at that time, then I was in bed. I was on my bed and I was completely disconnected. And I just feel now, after allowing myself that space to rest and retreat and heal and, sort of recuperate, that I feel like I'm starting to get back to being my normal self again, my old self again.
Yeah, like my experience with depression was like, it was very dissociative, which, is very similar to burnout.
Yeah.
They can almost be interchangeable. So I didn't sleep, which is it's very easy to get very close to psychosis when you don't sleep.
Yeah.
So I would sleep, but only for 5 to 10 minutes at a time.
Wow.
And it was just very small things were maximum effort things, and it has felt very similar, not quite as at that level where that was a level where I was on medication for I think about 6 months.
Yeah.
So I haven't felt the need to do that this time, but I have felt you're on the edge.
Yeah. Could go either way some days, couldn't it?
You are right on the edge of where things that, yes, are upsetting and are distressing, but normally you would have the capacity to deal with, and instead of, it's not like you're still sort of dealing with it, but me, having a rough drop-off with Arlo and then essentially, crying on and off the rest of the day is, really, on the edge there.
Yeah.
That's, not being able to express something simple without sort of choking back tears to people who are acquaintances.
Yeah. But do you think though that, and maybe if it's too personal a question, that's not a problem. But do you think though that you've got a really good reason why you've been feeling like this? You've had a lot going on in your life, which is for anybody really challenging stuff.
Yeah.
It's and maybe, and like I said, I have never been medicated for depression or diagnosed with depression. But do you feel like you've got reasons?
Yeah, that
rather than with the depression, it doesn't matter.
No.
It wouldn't matter. You would feel like that anyway. But this time you actually have you've got something very real and very stressful, as well as the COVID stuff and uni and whatever. So you've got other stuff going on, which would make you feel that way.
Yeah, it was very different. The first time when I was I think that I've always had periods of it, which I've sort of managed to manage, without being medicated.
Yeah.
But this particular time, there was certainly no situational trigger, and certainly it was unusual. I think I was officially diagnosed with severe clinical depression, and I think that because Arlo was maybe 2, they might have considered postpartum or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
But it was kind of unusual because you're over that really hard part, and Arlo was such an easy, after 6 weeks was such an easy baby and an easy toddler, so much easier than I'd experienced in the past, and was so independent and slept really well. So I wasn't sleep deprived up until that point. I had a pretty good home situation. I don't even think that I was really working at that time. But I was experiencing probably a little bit of loneliness and isolation on the Central Coast.
Yeah.
And that was right before we moved to where we moved.
Yeah.
But yeah, no sort of underlying reason. It was just what it was.
Yeah.
Whereas this is very situational in that I'll have a rough day and that's how I'll feel, and then I'll have a good day and I will feel so happy and amazing that things are going really well.
Yeah.
And so I think
some of those things are directly tied to what's to other things, other behaviours, or other people's stuff. It can really have a direct impact.
And you have sort of your kids' trauma sort of like mixing in with your of trauma, and you're just kind of going, oh, now I'm like really in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's not without its sort of reason, and it's just sort of like finding out, okay, like what part of my sort of like training stuff is gonna like support me through this and not make me feel even more shit.
Yeah.
You know, like the things that where I'm gonna go out, like I feel good about this. And at the moment I would say that is strength training, because I haven't, like, if anything, I'm probably a little bit stronger in some things than before. And it's just one of those things that COVID hasn't really like knocked it around.
Yeah.
So that, you know, like I can get like a sense of accomplishment out of, and like feeling like things are going well. So that's like a good thing for me at the moment. And also like running, you know, within, and it has been challenging to find, like I'm at that point where I need a structure to it.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'm getting bored.
And also, sometimes it helps to get you out of your own head or out of your own way, I guess, and that you're not overthinking it because somebody's just telling you what to do.
Yeah.
Or, you know, even if it's you've written your own plan or whatever, like you don't have, it's one less decision that you have to make every day. To just do the run that somebody set for you.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, so, like, that is, like, probably the more challenging thing is just, like, finding that, like, just challenging enough. Like, not too challenging, easy most of the time, but occasionally just, like, a little bit of a thing to kind of, like, get. And, you know, and sometimes it can help. I was thinking about this, is like what I should have is like, say, if I do like one session like that a week or one fortnight, but then I will just move it around to like a day where I feel most like doing that.
Dealing with
because it's one of those things that you might think, oh, like you're not going to feel like that on any day, but you will. You know,
like it's when you feel more resilient.
Yeah, and
more capable.
And it could even be weather related. It's like, well, good morning.
It's a nice day for it. I might go and do this. Or if you've got company who might be happy to come and do it with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to do harder things when you've got somebody else to complain to.
Yeah.
And I've got mouthy coach at.
I got nothing more than that. 48 in parkruns too. So I wanted to get to 50 by the end of the year, possibly.
Just squeeze that in.
I think I could just about squeeze it in. So yeah, you know, like I think that it can be that figuring out like what's too much versus not enough is, and it can just be figuring out like the style of it as well. You know, like I think that sometimes the thing with strength training too is like people think of it as all the same, but really it's incredibly different. And so what I've been sort of like, I haven't had a chance to fully start the program because, you know, like being away, I was like, oh, you know, I've done a few sessions, but I was like, oh, I'll formally start this like once I'm back but not travelling.
Yep.
But doing more, it's hit a bit of a rainy patch.
Yeah, so there might be a little bit of extra background noise.
I'm going to see how much I can clean up this audio. But, you know, like, I've been kind of looking at working on of the sort of like snatch and clean and jerk in the weightlifting style of things, because it is, I think, where I'm never going to look at something and go, oh God, that looks like too heavy, because like it's a lot of like technique work, you know, and so it's a lot more about just being dynamic and, you know, like, and you're still doing the strength stuff, like there's still like, you know, forced front squats, like things like that in there. But I think that it's just something that's novel enough to go, well, that's a bit interesting. I haven't done that before, and start to see like some of those things improve. So I think it's similar with running, is there are so many styles of like training to do, like whether I'm doing like base training or like I go, oh, I want to do like a big development phase on this short stuff, which I think with like post-COVID probably seems to work out the best because I'm never going to like jack my heart rate up really high if I'm just
Not
doing
extended
like
time.
30-meter sprints or even 100-meter sprints. It's not really good. Like you're not having that consistent cardiac drift going up. So like I think that can be like a way of doing it, and also just like elongating the time frame. So like this year I was supposed to go to Pan, which is like a master's stuff. The Gold Coast happens every 2 years, and I didn't go because because it's over several days, so it's a big time commitment, and I didn't feel like I would be like competitive at all. So I was like, nah, not really interested in doing that. But it is every 2 years, so I would be interested in doing it in 2 years, which is like a nice long time frame for like basically I looked at it, it's like, well, if I wanted to be competitive, I'd have to kind of like get back to like a 22-minute 5K.
Yeah.
And I've definitely nowhere near that. But like I could probably, I haven't done a 5K test in a while, but I would say that like I could probably manage something in the vicinity of like 26, 27 minutes at the minute. Once, like with really basic training, I would say 24 minutes, no problem.
Yeah.
And so it's more that's the sort of gap I'm talking about, which for a 2-year period I feel like is like potentially a good amount of time. So I think that if you just like broaden the like, I also kind of think about like, okay, like I managed to get into this sort of like burnout COVID hole over a period of 3 years, and I think of it a bit like pregnancy. Like they say it takes you about the same amount of time as at least as the pregnancy to kind of like get back to like where you might.
It didn't happen overnight, and you can't expect it to be fixed overnight.
So I kind of think like a 3-year, like if it took me 3 years to get into this level of training, then giving myself 3 years to get back out of it is not
perfectly reasonable.
It's not unreasonable. Yeah. And
especially considering we still don't know yet what's going to happen in the next 12 months to 2 years. Like,
and I am getting older. COVID 3 years.
COVID has fake news. You're only as old as you feel. You've just got COVID's taught us that, hasn't it? You just always have to expect the Spanish Inquisition, don't you? Just, expect that there's going to be another curveball coming because, I find it really hard when you like, you start to relax and start to, maybe even it feels like you're getting a bit cocky, and then bang, there's another curveball. There's something else happens. The other penny, the other shoe drops kind of thing, and it's something else waiting around the corner. Life is full of unexpected.
It is the surprises, unpredictability that makes it hard. Like it's not something, like where you've got this really predictable timeline and you go, okay, well this has happened, but by this time this will have happened and this will have happened, and it's very unpredictable. Like I don't know. Like I seem to be getting better, like with the, like even just on a really micro level with being like post-infection with COVID. Yeah. But I don't really know like what the long-term impacts of that are going to be. I'm, very grateful that the sort of the fatigue element appears to be no longer going on, but you just don't know how that's going to sort of like pan out over the long term. And, there are always so many other things going on as well. Like I don't have a severe scoliosis by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, things can happen and move, like, as you get older.
And they do,
you
don't
know,
they? Our skeletal, you know, spine especially changes as we age.
And, you know, like, it's, like, you just, there is, like, a real unknown factor about it, which I also think in some ways, as long as I sort of, like, stick to just, you know, like, being in the present, like, it's hard because you want to be able to plan stuff, but it's also just one of those things where
it's that little thing that sits on your shoulder and reminds you that you can't take it for granted.
No. And just, like, all of the sort of, like, getting fitter is great because it makes running more fun. But ultimately, I would still, like, be outside were it not for all of that, you know. Sometimes it's more fun to be outside than others, you know, just depending on, like, the environment you're in and how humid it is.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's there's lots of food for thought, isn't there? There's lots of different, so many, you know, we're such multifaceted people. We're beings.
Yeah, and I think it's often too sort of like at our age, it's a bit more of like a transition time too, because often you're going from having like maybe like kids are a bit younger, more requirement for you to be at home, or if you can be, you might want to be, and then once they're all sort of like much more established at school, like mine are both going to be in high school next year, and then you kind of like you're in the workforce more, and so you go from having this much more sort of like part-time work existence to a much more full-time work existence, and all of a sudden
it's a big change.
You're going, gee, it's a lot harder to fit in this 10 hours of running. What happened?
I know, right? What the hell? Not sure it's okay.
No.
Or going to the gym, you know, you can't go to the 9:30 class anymore. Or you know, finding a time that, you know, that still gets you home in time to get the kids to school, so you can go to work and whatever. Yeah, that.
Or make dinner, or
you still eat and sleep.
Some, but apparently you're still expected to do.
It's unfortunate. It's slightly unfair.
So I think that sometimes like your life has changed, but how you think about like your training hasn't changed in line, because I've certainly sort of like resisted that change. It's like, no, I want to do everything that I've always done while, you know, like working 20 hours more and doing uni at least 10 hours a week, but still train exactly the way I always have.
And still do well at uni.
Yeah.
And still do well at work.
Yeah.
And still,
all of those things I would. And so part of it is that constant like reorienting of, okay, but that's not your reality.
Yeah.
You know, like that is not like, it potentially, like maybe it could be if you were a billionaire and had like, you know, people to do stuff for you 24/7, which would be very nice. But it's not, you know, and so, and also like one of the things that Mel, the yoga teacher at the retreat was saying, which I think is such good advice beyond just restorative yoga, is that don't feel like because like doing something harder is necessarily going to be better.
Yeah.
You know?
More is not always better.
Yeah. You know, like you can have great results with running, you know, like 6-7 days a week. And you can have amazing results with running 3 times a week, because 3 times a week you are probably like having awesome recovery. You're probably having better sleep.
Yep.
You're probably feeling a lot better about those sessions. Like you're not like carrying fatigue.
You're looking forward to them.
Into sessions.
Enjoying them.
And particularly for women, that sort of get less adaptation from like the volume as you get older, because, you know, you just don't respond the same way to men do due to smaller lungs, smaller heart, all of that sort of stuff. And so it's very possible that you could do even better just by having more high quality sessions, but less of them.
Not everybody responds well to lots of it.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to, which is why but not everyone does.
No.
I've always been if I'm sort of doing, historically, if I've been running 50 kilometres a week, that's probably maintaining, but I'm probably not getting any better.
Yeah.
But just because that was what it was like in the past
doesn't mean that's what it's going to be in the future.
It could, I don't know.
Yeah.
And also there's no point in kind of going, oh, I've got to run 70 kilometres a week and doing that for 1 week and then doing nothing for 2 weeks. That's not going to help me either.
Yeah.
So, it is one of those things where I've just sort of, it's just like what you can consistently do, and that's probably less.
Yeah, I think so. And consistency is king, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or queen, whichever.
Yeah. And it is, I think probably a lot of people, at least that we know and in Run Club and stuff, are at the stage in their life where they're going through that transition.
Yeah, a lot of us are all the same, similar ages, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're in the same age bracket, sort of 40 and over.
Yeah. And you're kind of
to
going
mid-50s
from maybe doing part-time work to now you're in a career job.
Yeah.
You're not working.
Yeah.
You've got
You're not just paying the bills.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
getting a bit of extra money. We're nearly at the airport.
We are. So
yeah, it's been lovely. So lovely. We haven't done this for a long time, have we?
No, and we don't.
Really lovely to chat.
Don't normally get to do it in person.
No, this is probably
nice.
the first time we've ever done it face to face, which is a real treat. But we better say thanks for listening, Anna.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to us ramble.
We have delivered 2 hours as promised.
As promised. 2 hours of talking shit with each other, as promised to our core fan base. It's been really nice. It's just a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And other people get to listen. Take from it what you will. But it's been awesome. Yeah. And Heidi's been in the back seat for this one and listening to the last 20 minutes, rolling her eyes, I'm sure. But anyway.
Thanks again to Kirsten for that conversation, and also our captive audience, Heidi. I will be back next time. It really, I'm not overly confident about the time scale here because I'm about to start a 6-week intensive on anatomy and physiology, but I do have something which I'm really excited to share next time, which is with Anna Spargo-Ryan, and I will get that edited because it's in video, so it takes a little bit longer as soon as I can, and that will be the next time you hear from me.